So I have to ask the obvious question. So are you, any of you from the region, from the southern Louisiana region?
No, never far, yeah.
So how did you get involved with this project?
Well, like a lot of things in life and filmmaking is, serendipity. Jeff and I were traveling around many years ago with another film, offbeat environmental documentary on the Salton Sea, and a local Cajun programmer was kind of telling us about these giant rats, and it was kind of one of those what the fuck moments of like, no, that can't exist. And so Jeff and I kind of played around with the idea of doing a short documentary for a while, but we kind of tabled it, and we'd been longtime friends with Quinn, and Quinn was in Louisiana.
Yeah, I had a friend who was in charge of eradicating them around the Lake Pontchartrain area, right? And so she was describing them to me, and I had never heard of one. And she was like, "Yeah, and they're turning them into coats and food, and they're eating them." And I just kept like, I just kept seeing that there could be so many different people that were involved in this thing, that were connected through this animal. So we all kind of came together in San Francisco with both wanting to work on a project like that.
And I think all three of us have just an affection for quirky documentaries. Those are the sorts of films that we like to see, and the ones that we want to make.
Right. And can you talk a little bit about the process of finding those people to, the subjects for the film? Like, there's obviously a lot going on. So how did you sort of determine who you're going to be following, which stories you're going to be telling?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a process that just involved a lot of traveling down in Louisiana, and I mean, I think the great adventure of this film was it was just driving around in the bayous and talking to people and hanging out and being in the bars and those nutria tail collection sites are great, like hubs for meeting nutria hunters, as you can imagine. But
yeah, we found a lot of people at those places. And the thing about Louisiana is just people are very willing to talk, and so especially at the nutria collection site, it's kind of a who got the most tails that day and everything. So yeah, so people are amazingly open, and that was really a big asset. And especially Thomas, the main character in the film, he's just so amazing and cooperative, and he doesn't really care that we were doing a movie about him. He's just like, okay, you're filming me. It's more like, I think he tells his tale and he loves to be heard, and so it was wonderful to work with him because he was like the perfect subject in a way.
And Michael Baran, we saw, I think it was like an internet advertisement or something came across the transom of like, this person does we'll get rid of your nutria if you have a nutria problem and stuff. And we were like, we have to, and then I called you, and you that first conversation, you're like, let me tell you what's going to happen. Someone's going to be harassing us trying to get the nutria out of the traps. They're going to all these different things, and they all came true. So.
And so what did you think when they contacted you? Like, have you been asked to do anything like this before? What was any hesitation on being part of this?
Well, no hesitation at all. Pretty amazing. When Quinn first talked to me on the phone, I was very intrigued that they'd be even interested in nutria. I grew up with it my whole life, and it's always been a weird thing, but they've really convinced me that this was going to be done. And so their vision and their tenacity of 4 years of doing this, I mean, hats off to you guys.
I remember that one we had filmed the kind of nighttime scene with him, and I remember he was giving us a call a couple months later. He's like, "I got this contract for a golf course, He's like, "You want to come out with me in the morning?" And next you see this this nutria being chased around by the dog, and that was quite a wild experience.
Yeah.
So wait, Quinn, you're the editor on this as well?
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about sort of putting the different parts of this together and sort of how long that took for you?
Yeah, I mean, that we kind of had the experience of we would shoot and then we kind of come back and edit each individual scene and see how it was working and how it was resonating. And then, we go through a lot of different folks in this movie, and there's a lot of things that are kind of connected. So we were like, what are the different thematic things that we want to link? Who, when you're doing a feature, so much works kind of on one level as you're laying it out in cards, but when you watch the whole thing through, you're like, I don't know, moving this thing over here really threw off the energy on the other side of it. And so it was a lot of trial and error, and it was a lot of we really had to rely a lot on colleagues in this filmmaking community in San Francisco to watch it and tell us it sucked and to try again and to keep going, and until it was a place that we were all happy with it. And kind of to that end, I want to just thank everybody in the audience. There's a lot of folks here who are involved in helping to make the film, so really, really appreciate everybody that's out here, friends and family.
Most definitely. Thank you, everybody.
No, this is definitely, the nutria is just a part of the greater issue related to wetlands loss. And as you alluded to, there are so many different things that contributed to it. I mean, the dredging of the canals is huge, right? And all of these different factors. And so we kind of had to make the decision when we were making this film of how much are we going to look at, what is the big picture of what causes this? And we kind of decided that that was something that we hope people would be interested in if they could see how wonderful the people are there, that it's a place worth preserving. But the different solutions that are on the table to mitigate this are vast and varied, and kind of from community to community, it's kind of this big debate of like, is it too late? Is it worth it? What can be done? So. Anyway,
and there's something, I think that Edmund, the kind of person who kind of runs the nutria control program for the Louisiana Department of Fish and Wildlife, is that he's, one of the big things is that, oil dredging in the oil industry causes a lot of wetlands loss, but so many people depend on their jobs there, so you're not going to go after, kind of bite the hand that feeds you. A lot of the kind of dredging that's happened is related to oil and gas exploration, and so the idea is like nutria is the thing that they feel that they can tackle and at least maybe make a dent in it, and the other things are kind of long-term more sorts of things that they might be able to tackle.
The other issue too with the nutria is the nutria are spread out over such a large area, and there are just so many of them that there are a lot of different aspects of what's causing coastal erosion and what makes it. But the nutria have affected such a large area and so far inland, and so they cause so much problems inland that some of the oil and gas stuff doesn't really affect. So there's a whole lot of cause and effect with that. But the nutria, just the sheer volume of them is put in such a horrible place on it. I mean, I can remember places down south that were hard oak, live oak forests that are now just water.
We have another question down here. Oh, yes, please.
Well, interestingly enough, I think there's a lot of designers actually based in New York and in Italy that have tried to kind of start to kind of play around with nutria. There hasn't been kind of like a huge growth in the market outside of like very cold countries like Russia. Nutria is still very popular, and actually nutria is farmed there. So it's kind of slowly taking off, and furs become a little bit more, I guess, acceptable, especially sustainable fur. In regards to PETA and like kind of animal rights activists, I think this is one of those things that has been kind of outside the spotlight, in the sense that most people in Louisiana, even people that support animal rights, accept it as kind of a necessary evil. This is kind of our world premiere, so as we screen in other communities, it'll be interesting to see how people respond there.
Right. I have to ask you guys, would you get a pet nutria?
No. When I tried to film that pet nutria of Eric's, it was not happy with me at all. It was just like, it would just go at the bars and everything. And the only exception was, and we had, for some shots, we had this trained nutria that you could actually like touch. A friend of Michael's that had this one. And so then it was an amazing experience, because it was something you could hold in your hands and you could see the creature up close without it like biting your finger off. But I think Nudie the nutria is quite an exception.
Okay.
And the trainers had said that this is a very special nutria.
Yes.
Like, this they found her very small, but with someone like Eric, it's only him and his girlfriend and his son that are allowed to even get close to the thing. So
Right.
yeah, and then they make a mess. They're trying to burrow all the time. Yeah. So the nutria's in the cage and it's trying to get under the papers, and it's making all this mess and everything. And
they stink.
But Thomas has had
swamp rat,
pet nutria over the years, and he would have one in a heartbeat, if there was one that he found as a baby to raise. But actually, the kind of tunnel scene you see in the beginning of the film, Michael and Jeff went and built that over several days, and then worked with this trained nutria, filming them to, running around the tunnels and trying to figure out ways to incentivize her. That's Nudie the nutria. And she has a Facebook page.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Was that so? At the very, very end, was that nudie, or was that? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. We have time. Oh, yes, please. We have time for like one or two more questions right here.
I mean, it's definitely a problem in these other areas, but I think with the environment in Louisiana, the habitat there is they're pretty prolific. So they're also in places like Maryland and Oregon, but they're not nearly as much of a problem in those areas. So
Maryland instituted an eradication program to just totally get rid of them, and that was successful in some parts. But they keep cropping up, man. I mean. I was talking to somebody the other day in like Slovakia, and they're like, "Oh yeah, those things. That's like a new thing for us." So, anyway, they're kind of they're moving around. They like to breed.
Well, it's a very successful mammal.
Yeah.
You know? And so when they get into these other areas, you know, they're like in Vietnam, for instance, the coastal line is so prevalent for what they really like to do. And they just really breed their but in Vietnam, they eat them with vigor. And so they just don't populate as much.
On that note, I do have to wrap things up, unfortunately, but I want to thank you so much for bringing such a great, quirky film
Thank you
to
all
the
for coming
festival.
out. And we are,
Yes, the party.
if you'd like to continue on and celebrate, we have some live Cajun music that we're really excited about.